Welcome back to Greg's Gruns. Today we have a special treat for you. I'm here with Harry from Beach Ballistics.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming. And he's brought some toys with him. This is probably the only video that I know of that has a SIG, a real Swiss-made SIG 553P comparison with a real Swiss-made 552P. And these are both pretty rare. 553 is pretty rare. My serial number is 838, so less than 1,000 probably in the country. And 552s, how many are in the country, Harry?
Kind of done my own research, and I think there's less than 200 or semi-auto 552s in the U.S. You've got police trade-ins, and JDI brought in about 50 with a rail, and only 10 with the diopters. So this is one of those 10.
That's one of 10, absolute unicorn of a gun. And outwardly, they really look almost exactly the same except for the charging handle.
Yeah.
So that's really the only difference. And they're not interchangeable. We actually tried to do that. And you cannot interchange them easily. But internally, there's some internal differences. That's really the big difference. So we're going to crack them open here in a minute after we shoot them. We'll do a little shooting comparison and then see what's different on the inside.
All right.
Hello there. As you all know, the Patriots have raised the prices on everything to stimulate the war economy. This means that the cost of production has really gone up. If you feel like supporting the channel, please like and subscribe, tell your friends, share the video, and if you want to be really good, click the link below for the Patreon.
So first off is the 553. This is my rifle. It is an SBR, and essentially it's a Swiss version of the AKS-74U Krinkov. The Swiss wanted their own version of the little teeny tiny Suchka AK, so they made the 552, and then they product improved it to the 553, and they are exactly the same size when they're folded up. So let's see how it shoots. Should probably load it first. Here we go. All right, it's pretty smooth. So this is the 552. We'll see if there's any shooting comparison. My guess is probably not, but we'll see. Yeah, it feels exactly the same, pretty much, to shoot. But how often do you see a comparison? I mean, let's be real. So we have a special treat. Harry actually has two 552s for some reason. He felt compelled to get two of these things, and this is one of 50 brought in with a welded on Picatinny rail and all the tactical Swiss crank accessories. So let's see how this one shoots. Very nice with the dot on there. I like that a lot. So, what do we have here? These are like $200, something
Yeah.
like that.
In fact, I found it in a dumpster.
Yeah, I got mine at Cabela's. Just kidding. So we're going to compare the operating systems of the 552 and 553 because they're really, that's the only difference between the two of them. I will take my gun apart first. It's a little bit easier. But it comes apart just like a normal 550 or 551, which you might have at home, of course. So, bolt comes out the rear. You got an AK bolt, pretty much. And then the front might be a little bit toasty because I just shot it. The front just comes right out the front there. And that's it. It's field stripped. Easy McSqueezy. Easy peasy McSqueezy. But it essentially is the exact same as a 550 or a 551.
So I believe the story goes Sig hadn't really figured out the spring technology to take the 550 system and compress it as short as they did with the 553 when this first came out in the late 90s. So they kind of did things a little different on this system here. Non-captive recoil spring.
Yeah, so that just pops out the rear if you're not paying attention.
One of my favorite features of the Sig 552 is what I like to call the spring launcher. Exactly. And then you can see it's more like an AK where the bolt carrier is one piece instead of two pieces like in the 550 system.
Right, so this is the actual Swiss crank because it looks like a crank on the inside. This, for those of you who don't know, this is actually still a long stroke piston system because they are joined together by the charging handle when it's inside the gun. It's just that you take it apart to, take the gun apart. But when it's inside of the gun, it's acting as one piece, as opposed to this, which is obviously does it come out? Can you take this off?
Not user friendly.
Not easily. So it's kind of like an AK piston. It's just kind of part of the carrier.
Mm-hmm.
And what's going on up here? Like nothing?
Yeah, pretty much. This just came out. I mean, it still uses the same gas plug, but
it's the same. It's just a tube.
Just a tube,
an empty tube.
Yeah.
So the 552 is, I think, not a lot, but a little bit cooler because that's kind of the gun that's in so many video games and movies. They're unicorns in the U.S. They're really hard to find. But I wanted a shooter more than Harry, I guess.
Yeah.
So I got the 553 just so it's a little more robust.
And I should note one reason why they ended up doing away with the 552 and went to the 553 was there was a lot of problems with the system. The bolt carrier group would crack. The carrier would crack about around here, and your this rear tang on the recoil spring guide rod would break off. The original one was sheet metal. They switched to a polymer, but they still had issues with breakage. So and then that's why they decided to redesign it in the 553 system.
Cool. All right. I'll list these guns for $50 on Gunbroker and
doing a giveaway.
Doing a giveaway, yeah.
552, one of 10.
Buy one. Get
So we're here talking about the 552 and the 553. We've got a couple of influential guns. We're gonna open these guys up and show you the internal differences, which are really the big differences between the two guns. So here, this is a 552 as well with the welded rail. This is a 550. This is my gun. This is my 553. This is Harry's 552, and my crank, which is a 104 UR. So, yeah, essentially what they did with the 552 was kind of combine this gun and made short 550. And then later they changed the parts over to be more modern in the 553, more like the system on the 550.
Yeah, as I understand it, the reason why the 552 system is different than the 550 system is that Sig didn't think they had the spring technology to compact the system as small as these rifles are. So it's kind of more conventionally laid out like an AK.
Right. And when was the 552 developed? It was
late 90s. Yeah, late 90s.
Late 90s, okay.
Yeah, I want to say like 96 or 98.
Right. And a lot of people don't realize the Krinkov, the AKS 74U, actually wasn't made for that long. I think it was developed in the early 80s and they stopped production in the early 90s.
Yeah.
So it was only like 10 years.
And the 550 had been developed in the 80s and released in 1990 officially. So.
It's a great year.
Yep.
It's my birth year.
Anyways, let's take them apart.
Yeah.
I guess we'll start with the 5.52 so you
Yeah.
can see
Take that one apart.
how different that is. Now you got to be careful because the recoil spring is not captive. All right, so you want to see, you can see, oh, this is set up like an AK, the recoil spring in the rear. Now you want to take apart your crank.
Yeah, so obviously this is more of a true AK, but there's your recoil spring, and I mean, it's pretty much the same kind of idea, except it has a captive recoil spring. But. So that's the 5.52. You got your itty bitty little baby gas piston on there. Let's get this out of the way. Now we can pull the 5.53 apart. It comes apart a little bit differently, where the bolt carrier it's separate when you take it apart, but then you
Yeah, it's always a little difficult to open up.
this is the 4-position gas plug, and then the front just comes out. It's a contained unit now, so I switched that over, and that's really the difference. And then the inside of the gun, they interface like that, and the charging handle actually holds the two pieces together like that. So that's the difference. And
You want to show the 5.50?
yeah, if we scooch this over, you can see that the 5.53 is really just a shrunk down version of the 5.50. So it comes apart pretty much the same way.
Great shot of your arm.
Thank you. Sorry.
I stand over here and then I cast a shadow on everything.
That's all right. So that's the piston, the big boy piston on the 5.50, but you can see that it's basically this kind of the same idea. It's a different spring, but it's the same idea.
And as I understand it, the reason why Sig discontinued the 5.52 and went to the 5.53 was, well, they had some issues with parts breakage. The recoil spring guide rod would break here in the rear.
This part
Yeah.
used to be a piece of welded on sheet metal that was welded onto a rod, and it would break.
Yep. And then also the bolt carrier groups, the bolt carrier would have a tendency to crack right there in the middle. So, and also they wanted to not have to make unique parts of the 5.52. A lot of part similarity between the 5.50 and 5.53, so they discontinued the 5.52 in the mid-2000s and released the 5.53.
Yeah. Of course, the 5.52s are really, really collectible, super rare in the U.S., and the 5.53s are just kind of more of the shooter grade.
When I was growing up watching Transporter or playing Rainbow Six, they didn't have 5.53s in those. They had 5.52s. So.
Yeah. They've been in a ton of movies and video games, and they're really, really cool guns.
So that's why I chose to get that over a 5.53, is simply just a collectability.
And then you got another one.
Yeah, then I bought two because I'm a madman.
But yeah, that's pretty much the difference. A lot of people don't realize that there's the engineering that goes into making a rifle this small. Making a full-size service rifle, it's not easy, but shrinking it down into a gun that actually works and that's durable is pretty difficult.
Right.
And that's why there's no AR-15 that is essentially this size that actually works well. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right.
I'm gonna go throw these rifles in the trash.
Yeah, garbage.
You talk it all about like what this was. Which one was first? This one was first.
Yeah.
This is
Made,
first, yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So what was the objective for making something so short?
Personal defense weapon, special forces, I'd assume.
Yeah, so
military police. A lot of military police in Switzerland use the 5.52.
yeah, so it's the same motivation for making this. It's you know, along the lines of the M1 carbine. It's somebody who doesn't maybe necessarily need a full-size rifle or want full-size rifle, or size and cramped conditions necessitate a really, really tiny gun. Like if you're a Hind D pilot, Hind D pilots had these, and you can just fold them up to nothing.
In fact, I think they even had holsters for them
Yeah,
too.
they had holsters. There's
Yeah.
you know, and this is, I mean, it's bigger than a pistol, but it's also a lot more capable than a pistol.
Yeah, yeah.
Same thing with, like, you know, you're boarding ships as special forces. You know, you want a rifle, but walking around inside of, you know, below decks on a ship with something like this is going to be unpleasant.
Yeah.
So that's where these tiny little rifles come into play.